Oh, I'd rather be down here with the heat and the TV on. So I figured I would do this repair right here on my coffee table. Now what you guys see here obviously is an Oreck, and it definitely needs some work. This is actually parts from probably about 4 different Oreck vacuums. The beauty about Orecks is pretty much all their parts are completely interchangeable. These two came from the same vacuum. This motor came from this original vacuum, same with this intake here. The handle came from another trash pick vacuum, which again, this one was trash pick, so this is number 2. And then this one came from a totally different one. This is just one piece of an Oreck that I found in the trash. And then this I got today from one of my local vacuum shops that I frequent. And I had expressed interest to him that, hey, I need a pair of brushes because the brushes in this motor are completely worn out and it's starting to arc and spark on the commutator there. So he did inform me that Oreck does not actually sell brushes anymore. At least it's not common practice. What they do is they sell you the motor. And so if you have a problem with a bearing seizing up or brushes going out or whatever, Oreck wants you to replace the motor, which honestly is not all that hard to do. They're definitely cheap enough to do so. I've found them online anywhere from 25 to 40 bucks, depending on where you're looking. I would much rather fix this thing for absolutely nothing other than my time. This thing has a really good condition brush roll. I don't even have to lube it up or anything. Now, the vacuum shop that I got this from, the customer they got this thing from was probably told that, well, it's not really worth replacing, so I'll give you another one, or sell you another one. And there's still some more loose hardware in here, which, by the way, I have a whole garbage picked bowl. That bowl is literally garbage picked, full of Oreck hardware. But this one was junked, I presume, because the motor in it completely failed and burned up, which I will get you guys some better shots of this. So what I have here is a motor out of another Oreck about the same year, and these are all direct bolt-in replacements. The fan chamber on this one's okay. It's not horrible. All in all, I think that I should be able to get this one working. And when I put the brushes in from this one, assuming they're good, I'm going to reseat them with this nifty little tool that I just bought. I've been meaning to buy one of these for a while. Go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to have to do is, this whole vacuum is just completely filthy. I mean, all the pieces. The bag is fine. I actually just cleaned out the bag and then I put that in my laundry washer, and it cleaned it up really well. But we have all this dirt and dust and nastiness that is going to need to be cleaned up. Let's go ahead and pull out this belt. The belt's not in the best shape. It's not in the worst. I'm not going to use the belt. But here we have the brush roll, and this is actually still on the new setting. So this thing was probably replaced fairly recently, at least until they burned the motor up. But we'll clean that off too. Get the Mila started up. Another piece of hardware. Go ahead and pull the motor out. Pretty simple to do. They do have these piggyback connectors on it. And to pull one of these out, just rotate it up like this, and there you go. So there's the motor, and I'll show you guys what we're going to have to replace. So on this motor, you guys can see it does not want to move at all. It is completely seized up. Hopefully that's not a brush issue. It might not be. But we won't know that, of course, until we pull that out. Take the spring up. And then being a little black around the edges, they actually look like they're in pretty good shape. At least that one does. Let's pull this one out. There's that. This one looks good too. So some technical difficulties. I ended up replacing that fan shroud with the one off of the other motor. So I'll show you guys how to install one of these. It's very simple. You just kind of have to wedge it in there and move it around, but you want to start it so the motor is facing that way, and then just kind of finagle it in there and it'll go right in. So now what we can do is plug in all of our wiring. And it doesn't really matter which wire goes where. The only thing that matters is that your black and white wires are at opposite ends and adjacent from each other on both sides. We also have to hook up the power wires from the actual cord, which this one has a ground on it. I don't know what I'm going to do with that just yet. So for our purposes, what we're going to do is basically kind of install everything that we need to in order to get the power cord hooked up. Now in order to do this, we're going to have to secure the motor. Now we can easily remove these two screws if we need to, but what this makes it easier for us to do is really kind of install everything. So what we have here is the neck. These necks only go in really one way. You want to make sure that O-ring goes all the way down and this tube is seated flush, and then just tighten it up. And there's a trick to these. Now there is a legitimate tool that you can use, but a pair of channel locks works fine in a pinch. You want to make sure that these retaining nuts on both sides of this tube are nice and tight, because if they're not tight enough, this tube will move around in the fan chamber and it'll feel like the vacuum is flexing as you're using it. So you always want to remember to throw that in when you can. But anyways, here is our power cord. Now in the future, I am going to be putting in a different kind of power cord on this, namely because this one's grounded and also because I have these butt splices in it. They come in handy in a pinch, but they're unfortunately really not the best way to go about things a lot of the time. So I do apologize, but I will show you guys everything that I ended up doing with this thing. Overall, it came out pretty good. Cleaned out the outer bag and as well as the inside of the outer bag. Put a scent tablet into it, as well as a brand new paper bag. And it actually came out pretty good. So kind of happy with how it came out. Now this thing did have a black cord on it, and unfortunately that cord was not all that long, so I did have to change that out. And I put on a Dyson cord, which wasn't too hard to do. I had an old DC-18 sitting out in the garage, and I've got another one that's that I'm going to use to hopefully get working again, but that'll be a different video. I do need to get another cord retainer for this thing, and for the time being I just use a zip tie here and a zip tie inside, so at least it'll stop it from, you know, moving around too much. This part of the cord there isn't really a whole lot of stress and strain on it because it goes right up to the handle. So, you know, it's not moving around like a normal cord is when you wrap it up or plug it in and whatnot. So really the only movement that cord gets to the motor is that, and there's plenty of slack on it. In fact, there's probably too much on it, but that's okay. But overall, I think it came out pretty good, and I'll show you guys. I am going to do a separate video on this. I did polish the commutator on this. That's what I love about these Orecks, is they're just so easy to take apart. And it looks like the other one's still in base plate. Yeah, it's right there. That's fine. Anyways, so I polished the commutator, and I don't know how well you guys can see that, or if you even remember how much carbon was on it beforehand, but now it's actually in pretty good condition. Well, at least it looks better now that it's polished. But you guys can see that. I am going to do a separate video on how to polish one of these up. It's really easy to do. There's really nothing to it. And to my pleasant surprise, Harbor Freight carries soapstone, which is basically what you're going to use to polish a commutator. And it's actually a welding tool. You know, welders use that for their projects and, you know, marking on things and stuff like that. But it actually works really well as polishing a commutator on any electric motor that's got brushes on it. So I am going to do a video on how to polish one of those up here in the future. Shouldn't be too far out. I know I'm going to have to do it again. And these Orecks, they're fairly common. I've found quite a few of them, and this one's probably going to be going straight over to my local vacuum shop. But I'll let you guys hear how it runs. The new used brushes are still seating in, which is to be expected. It's nothing out of the realm of what's supposed to happen. So I tested it on the sacrificial downstairs carpet. That doesn't sound too bad. Definitely not with those new brushes. But you guys can see the headlights work well. But these Orecks, they just excel on really hard surfaces, or, you know, any low pile carpet or throw rug. They just work really well on. And I've had pretty good luck with Orecks. They're what I love about them is the parts for them are just so easy to find. They're so easy to work on. Really, in the span of about 10 or 15 minutes, you can have one of these completely taken apart. all the way down to, you know, the bare motor. And this whole base plate, just, you know, not having anything in it. They're just so simple, and that's one of the main things that I really like about these, as compared to a lot of other vacuums. But like anything else, they are a cheaper vacuum as far as, you know, durability goes and things of that nature. But in all honesty, I've always kind of had a soft spot for them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more.